Look at this one. Wolf whistlers will be prosecuted. But not only that, they are not allowed to say it's a joke. No more funny. What I find interesting is what happens if you go to the lawmaker and you ask them, but what is a woman? They will be confused. See, in many countries around the world, India, China, Saudi Arabia, probably even Israel, they know what a woman is. But when you go to the United Kingdom, they're confused. They're too forward thinking. They have left humanity behind. So that would be an interesting question. I understand Anna Kasparian is struggling with other people who do not understand. Man, I will say it in the next video as well. But if you take the most fringe right-winger, like the one that's the most crazy, you know, like 4G Magnet, you take that guy, he sounds like the most sane person when it comes to mainstream left-leaning thought. Let that sink in for a little bit. So yes, wolf whistling is not allowed. What I find interesting, though, is that the problem that I was struggling with when I grew up is never going to be addressed, is it? So the problem that I was struggling with is like I was in a very diverse neighborhood. A neighborhood with people from all walks of life, like the left leaning like to say it. It was diverse based on class, not on race. You Western racists. No, like based on class. And there were a lot of criminals there, you know, gang members, people that were pickpocketers, thugs. And you would walk on the street and you'd see someone at a corner like, hey, get over here. Hey, get over here. Tell me what time it is. You kind of knew what would happen if you went there. I mean, that wasn't wolf whistling, but it was bad, right? I assume it happens in other places in the world. Apparently that's fine, you know, so if you're a man, you should walk the streets with fear. But if you're a woman in the UK, apparently you shouldn't. Which is fine, you know, like, getting wolf whistle is scary, I guess. I mean, the only place where you should date now is on Tinder, right? So not on the street, not in the real life, on social media, right? Give your business to Tinder. Help them make money. So they can also socially engineer society. I'm not kidding. There was this article, I think it was like 2018, where a couple of academics, of course, they decided to make research on OkCupid. And they were astonished and distraught to see that most people date within their own ethnicities. Like they don't do interracial marriage. And they found that to be very problematic. So they realized that the website gives you a score on compatibility. So you go there, you write your hobbies, you write your interests, you write like what type of person you'd like to meet, and then it would give you a score between those two people. So what the researchers did is that they asked to have the score manipulated. So even if you weren't compatible with a person, you would become compatible, and they chose race to be a significant factor. So if you're a different race, then they would get a higher compatibility score. And they were happy to find out that a lot more people were now dating outside of their race. I mean, it's a very bewildering passion and hobby, I guess, to like be concerned with how and who people fuck. But what was also interesting is that they never considered to see how long-term the relationships were, how happy the people were, right? Like that, they were only concerned with like, all right, well, let's get people to fuck. Perfect. Meanwhile, the Home Secretary is going to toughen a proposed new street harassment law so that potential offenders cannot escape prosecution by claiming that their behavior did not amount to harassment. This is going to create the same culture we had here under the Iron Curtain, where people are afraid to interact with each other. I mean, you get to see, you know, like the left believes that you pass legislation and nothing else changes. But in reality, people are not pieces on a chessboard. Like, they move and they adjust themselves. So, for example, during the peak of Me Too, there were articles saying that managers and other influential people, they refused to coach women because they didn't want to get Me Too'd, right? Like, it's that simple. I mean, you had Ninja, which was a famous Twitch streamer at the time, refusing to play with girls. That's what happens. Then you also had another problem in China. For example, if you hit someone with a car, you're responsible. And you may have to pay hospital bills for their entire life. So there's no good Samaritans in that country. Like, people don't want to take someone else to a hospital and say that they accidentally ran them over. Like, it's a lot cheaper for them to try to run away from the scene of the crime. That's what happens when you pass legislation like this, right? So if you're basically saying that, first of all, like, what is a wolf whistle? Like, do you even have a legal definition of it? You don't. Okay. So you're saying that even in a joke, it's not okay. Well, people are just going to stop talking to women on the street. And what's interesting is that there was like also a push for the no means no thing, right? And there were women complaining online that they had a person that they were interested in, and they wanted to say no so that they can see that person try to keep persuading them, right? Like, try to fight for them. It's called romanticism. But in the Me Too era, it was called rape culture. So a lot of men realized, okay, well, no means no. So they would try doing advances. The woman would say no, and they're like, all right, well, plenty of fish in the sea. And women didn't like that. And it's probably what's going to happen here. Like, you're not going to have people talk to women on the street. If wolf whistling is not properly defined, and if you're saying that even if it's a joke, it's not okay, and apparently it's not even enough, because campaigners are saying that there's another loophole if they thought that the behavior is welcome, even if other reasonable people felt it's not. And like, again, like, how... It's so subjective, isn't it? Like, how would other people know if it was or wasn't? So Mrs. Breverman has now accepted their concerns and is backing on an amendment that will close the loophole by requiring a reasonable test where the defendant ought to know their behavior. Okay, so they didn't foresee the future. Did you see just... And this is the knife stabbing capital of the world? If they were to take the knife stabbings as seriously as this, maybe they would have solved them by now. The right to walk the streets without fear. Yeah, I think like the knife stabbing is a lot more scary than the wolf whistling, but who am I to know? This is why we are backing protection from sex-based harassment in public bill, and after carefully considering a range of views, we are supporting the amendment that will require the government to produce statutory guidance for the police to help them enforce their new offense. Yeah. If a person talks to a woman on the street, lock them up. I mean, why just even bother training people? More taxpayer money spent. Anyway, right. Let me know what you guys think. And as usual, I will see you in the comment section. Take care.